In this video, I'm going to be talking about intonation and how you can achieve intonation with a couple of practice tips that I tell my students and how it helps me achieve good intonation. Stick around to the end of the video. You don't want to miss this. Hi there, my name is Eric. I'm a violinist. Thanks for coming across this YouTube channel. I do violin how-to tutorials, vlogs, and other violin tips. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications. That way you get notified for when new videos come out. Also, it helps me out as a content creator to provide more videos for you. Intonation. Intonation is a big topic. And especially for a string player, if you're like a pianist and you don't have the luxury or the ability to tune your piano right on the spot unless you have like a piano tuner on hand, which by the way, some piano soloists do have like a personal piano tuner that flies with them across the world to tune their pianos. I want to pose a question down in the comment section below. What do you think are the methods or the ideologies of having good intonation? Let's start a conversation down in the YouTube section right below. I really want to know your thoughts. Let's get the conversation going. My thoughts on intonation in this case is going to be related to major keys, specifically G, D, and A major scales, and keys for that matter. And I want to also pose a question really quickly. Why do you think most composers compose in the keys of G, D, and A? I'll give you a second. The reason being is because the key of G, D, and A on the violin has more open strings available to you on the instrument. That's why a lot of composers use D major, D minor, G major, G minor, A major, A minor, because you're utilizing a lot of open strings to help the violin resonate. So in relation to these keys, how do we practice, fixing our intonation and how to get our intonation better? Well, first things first is that when you're practicing any kinds of scales, whenever you have the ability to play with open strings or tune with open strings, I really highly recommend it. Because, if we're doing G major, for instance, I'm using open strings on the D, and then and on G, D, and A, on G major, D major, and A major, that we are using a lot of open strings to maximize the resonance that is coming out of our instrument. So that's tip number one. If you have the ability to practice with open strings, I highly recommend that you do that. Just so that way, your violin is a blueprint and you take advantage of it. Use other strings to help improve your intonation. On the contrary, you have Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's 39th Symphony, which most of it is actually in E flat major. And the reason why most orchestras ask for this symphony in particular, first movement and last movement, is because E flat major, you don't have any open strings available to you. And it is a very important skill to have to listen for the intonation of E flat major in your head in a very strict and very tense environment, so that way when a judge behind a screen is listening to you, they can rely on you to play good intonation in an orchestra, especially in a performance setting. Let's see if we can just show you E flat major. So obviously no open strings available to me. I have to really rely on the shape of my hand, and I have to rely on my ear and how E flat major fits in my hand, in my ear, and in my head to really get that. So how do you practice a key like E flat major? Well, one tip I'd like to suggest to you is drones. No, not the drones that fly up in the air, cello drones. And the reason why I say cello drones is because a violin is really able to fit in the timbre of the cello. And I don't recommend tuning violin to violin. Like if you have like an earpiece in your ear and you're tuning from violin to violin, you're not gonna get like all the frequencies for you to tune into that cello timbre. So if you get a chance, check out the link below to get a copy of some cello drones that you can kind of just stick in your ear What I like to do is I like to keep it on loop. If I'm practicing for a long period of time, I let the track be on a loop and I just play what I need to play, practice my scales, my etudes, and my piece of music. Before we get to the bonus tip, there's one more thing that I want to add about intonation, and that is practicing etudes helps your intonation. And when I was growing up as a Suzuki student, what I found was that I never really had a good sense of theory regarding like music theory, that I didn't think of music in chords, in like a traditional music theory, like Western classical music theory setting, like 1-4-5-1. I really didn't hear that, and even to this day, I don't hear music that way. I hear music like based on melodies. And something that I encourage you to do, if you're like a college student or an advanced student, try writing down the blocks of the chords and the chord qualities in your etudes, because that will help you give you a better idea of how the chord fits into the scale, as well as if you're playing in chamber music, you have to know where you fit in a chord to be able to tune. The secret ingredient to having good intonation, it's patience. I can't tell you how many times I've had students come in being absolutely frustrated with their intonation. And we've all been there, where you feel like you've practiced really, really well and you sound amazing in the practice room, but then you come to the lesson and you're like, oh my God, like what am I doing? It takes a lot of patience, and it takes years to really master that intense level of concentration for having good intonation, not just in the practice room, but on stage performing in front of other people. So that is a really good skill to have, that when you're on stage and you're playing your best, you kind of have to forgive yourself if you make a mistake on stage. Oftentimes we forget that we are also human. And even though there are recordings out there, there are violinists out there who make beautiful, perfect recordings, like CD quality, they're also human on the inside, and their mistakes are on the micro level. And something that is a mistake to you may not be such a big deal from the audience's perspective. So that's something to think about when you are focusing on your intonation, being patient, especially with all the other key ingredients that I spoke about in this video. Patience is the key, and that is my bonus tip for you. And if you like that bonus tip, hit the like button. Again, if you found value in this video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications. That way, again, when new videos come out, you get notified. It helps me out as a content creator to provide more videos for you. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.